Oh, we are here for our practice. Are you ready for your practice? Our practice, your practice. Your practice is your practice, isn't it? You are here as a free spiritual being living in an infinite universe, moving and breathing and living how you are guided to the highest of your ability. That is something I know is truth about you, because you wouldn't be here otherwise. You don't come into this sanctuary to have someone else tell you what to do or how to live your life. You come into this sanctuary because you know something in your heart and you listen to it and you live by it. And that is so refreshing. From my heart to your heart, namaste. So we're diving in. You might not have known you showed up this Sunday for an adventure, but we're all on an adventure, and this is our divine appointment. We're on an adventure that is marked by a season and by a topic. The topic is abundance. The topic is prosperity. The topic is growth and expansion. And the season is the season of Lent. We just recently had Ash Wednesday. For those of you that don't know, I grew up Catholic, and so a lot of those Catholic traditions are still part of my family and part of my, sensing and tuning in. But there is something that happens during the Lenten season. As we grow in Lent, we're preparing for Easter, and in Unity, we teach that is the preparation for the awakened consciousness, for enlightenment, for expansion, for the Christed being, knowing that Christ was not Jesus' last name, Christ was the anointing. And the master teacher said, "These things too you shall do," and pointed to each one of us to call forth the highest in our nature. And so this is a season of not just sitting back and thinking nothing's happening, but it's a season for recognizing that there are spiritual forces, spiritual activities, spiritual energies happening in this universe, in our lives, and in our being that are calling us into a season. I like to use the acronym that came to me many years ago for Lent in Unity. I grew up Catholic, so it's a lot of times like letting go of chocolate for 40 days, which is just no longer an option. No, just kidding. But in Unity, what we do, we take on a practice of fasting from negative thinking. Fasting, it may be from all negative thinking if you think you can do it, right? But it's definitely fasting from something that you tune into that no longer serves your being. That if after 40 days, it weren't just a diet, if after 40 days you were no longer attracted to putting that in your mind, putting that in your body, putting that in your spiritual system, to making an agreement with that, whatever that limited thought is, you will have a different life. You will be a new being. You will be born again into a new creation. More light will be able to shine in and through and as you, because you stepped into something powerful and you took on this practice. Lent, live and embody a new thought. L-E-N-T. Live and embody a new thought. But boy, does it take a practice. And this is one of my favorite practices. Usually I don't love the recurring seasons in ministry. Like I don't love Valentine's Day Sunday. I don't like being theme-oriented like that kind of thing. But what I love is what happens within us and among us at times of great quickening. You know how you can feel sometimes at Christmas time, you can just feel a different feeling in the air? Well, we don't always tune into the different energy, the different feeling in the air during this Lent time. But I think we're affected by it regardless. So are we going to say yes to the opportunity? To the opportunity for spiritual support during this time. Now, you may already be starting to think of something that you want to fast from, something that you want to let go of, or an expansion that you want to have, something that you want to grow into. How much can we grow? How much can you give me, and can you put in my hand right now if I'm squeezing it very tight? Can you get anything in there? I have to let go. I have to open. And that's the practice. That's the experience. When we bring awareness to what's going on around us and within us, we expand our experience. So I do believe that this 40 days of Lent, this spiritual preparation for Easter, for the awakened consciousness, for our becoming, I do believe that it is affecting each one of us, and it is affecting the world around us, whether or not we know, whether or not we care, whether or not we practice. But something extraordinary happens when we partner with it. When we become conscious, mindful, when we co-create, when we bring it in, when we say, bring it on. Now, who has seen some stuff in the news lately about the sun? Like, did you hear this idea that a chunk of the sun just broke off? And it's not exactly that. It's not quite that. But when I heard that news, I was like, what on earth is going on? Isn't there already enough going on in the world around us these days that we don't need a chunk of the sun flying around? Right? No. They say a bend of a long filament of plasma, which is a highly electrically charged gas, shot out of the surface. Material from a northern prominence just broke away from the main filament and circulated in a massive polar vortex around the North Pole of our star. That seems like it could affect us. Just a little bit, right? I mean, the moon affects us, right? It affects the tides, the water, the air. It all affects us. I also read something that I missed. You probably didn't miss it, but somehow I missed it. This whole thing of the core of the earth slowing down and shifting. Who caught that news from 2009? I mean, maybe it's back up again because of the sun, because our sun is acting up. Maybe we're revisiting it. But the inner core's rotation, they think, stopped or slowed between 2009 and 2020 and may have reversed direction. And they're observing now with different equipment that they can, find out more about what's going on, that maybe it's a 70-year complete cycle, maybe it's a 20, 30-year cycle. They're looking at what is this cycle that's happening. And the Earth's core is about the size of Mars and consists of iron and nickel. And it says it contains about 1/3 of the Earth's mass. So, this big nugget that we're on is shifting. And magnetic stuff, metal in there. Rolling one way and now it might be rolling another way or trying to turn, whatever. That's big stuff that we might know nothing about, right? I didn't know anything about that. But I have a hunch it's affecting a number of things. That is the power of the season of Lent. Can you feel that for a moment? Big things are going on right now, whether or not we know it. Just try that on. Test it. See. Give it 40 days. Give it time. Engage in a possible adventure. If you feel like the ground beneath you is shifting, it is. It is. And you might start to notice things in your own personal life. I think that it is the nature of a spiritual system in which we live, move, and have our being. And regardless of culture, regardless of location, time, religion, we are all affected by the same things. We're all affected by the same God. I mean, religions like to act like they're different gods and there are different rules and all of that. Hogwash. I mean, come on. Right? We're humans. And we're on this planet in a galaxy full of space, full of stars. There are animals and creatures here. There's life. There's water. The source of everything is the source of everything. It's not going to be so small that it's going to dish out a religion to you and dish out a religion to you and dish out a religion to you. And if you do this and show up like this, then you're going to get saved. And if you do that, things are going to work for you. We're all part of the same oneness, no? And thank goodness we're all built with an inner compass to go directly to, as Charles Fillmore said, headquarters, directly to source. Not a man in the sky somewhere, a God that we personify or create after humanity, but the source that creates everything, life, intelligence, substance. So we're all affected on some level, and we're all committed because we're here. And I believe if we let ourselves go with the rhythms of our nature, the growth will occur naturally. I think if we take a deep dive into our own lives, we might be able to see patterns that have already been emerging. Something happens to me in these spiritual seasons, especially when I prepare for teaching a prosperity class or leading a group, because not that I'm not a planner, but I'm not a planner. So a lot of other leaders would probably start really doing the work. Like, okay, I'm going to do a prosperity group, so let me get my gratitude journal out. Let me start, writing down my forgiveness work, right? What else? Let me check in on my tithing and make sure I am actually tithing and circulating 10% of my income to where I'm spiritually nourished. Am I spiritually nourished in these places? Should I up it so it pinches a little? What should I do? Let me start clearing out and letting go of things. Let me start looking at the thoughts in my mind that I need to let go of. I'm not so much like that, but this is how I am. All of a sudden I had something going on, and all of a sudden, after wanting to be in my yoga practice for a long time and not being able to get there because it's so far away, all of a sudden a little divine appointment with my chiropractor who told me his wife goes to a hot yoga studio and it's right here and it happens to be 6 minutes from work and I really needed to go. So all of a sudden I am back into a very committed practice for my body and my wellness and my meditation and my silence time that is like really nourishing and grounding. A few months ago, I decided to do something very uncharacteristic for me. I often have felt like being in ministry, I don't serve. And I know that sounds funny, but I don't give, I don't volunteer because my whole world is volunteering and service, right? So like other people sign up and do good things, like are good people that do good things and serve and do things. Volunteer. Look at John Fry, who went to the Village Mike the other night. Right? And I often feel like left out of that because I feel a little bit busy with service and volunteer life and all of it, right? But out of nowhere, just like a few months ago, I was like, I'm just not going to live with that limitation. I'm going to serve. And there were a couple of things. One of the things I'm going to start doing is bring my daughter in on Fridays once a month. I am going to go to our sister church, Unity Southeast, and I am going to start serving by handing out food that Harvesters joins with us and partners with us to donate. And I'm going to start doing that, and some others are going to start doing that. If you want more information on that, you can see Ann at the door as you leave. But I'm going to start doing that. And so I kind of made that commitment in my mind. And then I did something else. Do you know what this is? A leash. I am not a dog person. I am not a dog person. I am a cat person. But somehow it flew by my radar. Would you like to be a foster parent for dogs that are at kill shelters that need to get rescued, pups and dogs and this and that? And I thought, that sounds like something I could do. That sounds like service I could do. And it just kind of called to me, right? And I signed up, and we got our first puppy. Now, those of you who know a little bit about my job, I got some calls about that from the people close to me. What on earth do you think you're doing? What on earth do you think you're doing? And in fact, when I was at Thanksgiving with my family, the first call was about 6 puppies or 8 puppies or 6, I don't know. And it was before Christmas, and I was just like, how cool would that be to have like 6 puppies at Christmas? Who's a dog person? Raise your hand. You don't think it would be cool? No, you don't, because you know. My sister said to me, how about just starting with like 1 or 2? And I was like, well, maybe 3. So anyway, the universe supported us, and delivered to us was 1 puppy who already had an adoptive family and only needed a home for 2 weeks. Thank God. Seriously. And I got COVID during that time and actually had to pawn the puppy off on Reverend Brenda Arrett, who is one of our ministers that comes to share a lot, and she's in the Zoom room. And so she actually got my daughter and the puppy while I stayed in a room trying to not get anybody else sick for the last little bit of that. That was, we'll just not talk about that anymore. But it felt so good. Our second little dog was this little Chihuahua. And I made sure to get one that knew how to go to the bathroom outside. That was my next growing edge and requirement. Like, okay, we'll do this again. First, I thought we're never going to do this again. Then I was like, oh, they sent off these things. Could you have this little one? They're at a shelter, and we have like 48 hours to decide. And, and then, freedom form. And I was like, yes, we can. Can it go potty outside? So we got this little Chihuahua, and then I prayed because I figured we're really good people for this because we know how to pray stuff up. And so kind of on my little foster mom heart is like, how fast can we find this pup a forever home? Now, most people probably want to extend the time period. I actually don't. In fact, I've got one right now that if any of you want to see pictures after the service, I almost wanted to adopt her yesterday. I just got her yesterday, and I wanted to adopt her yesterday. This is her leash. Yeah. I took her out to a place that she is allowed to go. I called to say, is there any place a dog can come? And she's incredible. She is a snuggler. She is cute. She is sweet. She is everything you would want in a dog if you're a dog person. But it stretched me. It's grown me. In fact, this morning it stretched me so much that I put her in, she has a kennel, like a sleeping kennel that I'm trying to be good and know that she needs to be in there because that will make her more adoptable apparently. So she stayed in the kennel, thank goodness. But I felt guilty leaving her in the kennel this morning for Sunday, so I brought her down to the kid playpen downstairs, and she's tiny, but she's a little bit tall. Anyway, I thought to myself, this could be a little dangerous because if she gets out while I'm here, what could happen in 4 hours at my house? But I did it anyway. And I put like chairs along the side so like she couldn't knock over the fence, right? So I have my 4-year-old at the front door, and I'm like, grab your stuff, put it in the car, and I'm out on the driveway. And this dog is a hunting dog, like apparently that should never be off the leash because they'll leave forever. And so, long story short, she's in her cage, and my daughter is at the front door, and she goes, Mama, Reba's out, as we're ready to lock the door. And the dog comes darting out the front door past her into where construction is happening all around my house, like pits and mud, and because they're putting in fire hydrants. This is getting to be a very long story, isn't it? And the dog is just running. So I'm here in these clothes, running through mud, going like, and then thinking about how people told me, never let that dog off a leash because that dog will never come back. And I'm thinking, no, I mean, you're going to go run to your forever home. You're going to go because you're going to go find it. But I'm there, on a Sunday morning, grabbing, and luckily she came to me. She did come to me. I just leaned down, a little bit of prayer, and she came to me. And I put her inside. And I said to myself, I am no longer tempted. That desire has been removed from me. I definitely recognize I'm a cat person. But it stretched me. It's grown me. Now, I don't know if I'll do it again, after she has a home, which I think is going to be the people that I met up for lunch with because they really liked her, even though she chewed that leash in half during the lunch. But are we willing to stretch ourselves? Are we willing to stretch a little bit to the point that it hurts a little bit? Are we willing to make a commitment? Are we willing to, in abundance activity, what we do is we tithe of our time, our talent, and our treasure? Are we willing to make no excuses about that and find a way that it can work for us to get who we are into circulation? So circulating your time is really about your spiritual practice. Am I willing to spend my time in meditation? Am I willing to commit to my spiritual practice, to coming to Sundays, to coming to a class, to doing whatever spiritually nourishes me so that I can be hardcore about my practice, vigilant about my commitment? Tithing of talent. That's my gifts. Am I willing to share my gifts? Tithing of treasure. My finances, everything that comes in. Can I experience myself as an inlet and an outlet to a greater degree than I ever have before? So it's not just about getting stuff. So I get my mind out of this idea of getting and think, what if I am here to be a conduit, to be a channel, to be a giver, and can I focus on that? And can I do these things to the point where they're a little bit uncomfortable? Interesting concept, right? Can I do it to the degree that it's a little uncomfortable? That's one key. It's like, the 6 puppies would have been very uncomfortable. But, in my mind, it was like, this is going to be so comfortable, right? But there's so much learning going on, right? There's so much stretching. Can we open ourselves up to be changed? Tithing of our time, our talent, and our treasure, especially at a time like this during Lent, at a time that it is ripe for our awakening. Can we practice these principles and dive into an adventure where we recognize that we're going to be a little uncomfortable, that we're going to stretch ourselves because we're going to make the next 8 weeks, whatever it is for you, at least the time up to Easter, we're going to make it different because we're going to show up to it differently. We're not going to just ask for change, ask for expansion, say a prayer about our lives, but not prepare for it, not engage in it, not interact with it. Someone just said to me recently, we were talking about prayers and answered prayers, and they said something about what you're praying for. Maybe you've been praying for this, but you weren't planning on it. You weren't preparing for it. And I was like, man, it's actually true. I was praying for something, but I was not planning on it. And I certainly was not preparing for it. Planning for something and preparing for something takes conscious, mindful activity. And generally, where there's growth, there is release, which is a key component to abundance work. Releasing, letting go. And usually, friends, it's not stuff that we know about. You know, if we knew about it, we probably would have done it. I mean, maybe, right? Because we're all little addictive human beings. But if we're really ready to grow, and if we're really praying in a spiritual expansion, if we really want to align with the energy of Jesus coming out of the tomb, of the resurrection, of our own becoming, there is going to need to be something that's crossed out. My father was recently in the hospital, and I was visiting him in the hospital, and there was a little chapel. So after we got done visiting him, I took my daughter to the chapel. And again, growing up Catholic, I thought, okay, well, this is a good time for her to learn the Lord's Prayer, and so we did that. But there was a little basket by the door of rosaries, and I was looking at them and I thought, well, this is a sweet thing for her. She can have her. So I let her pick one, and then she picked one for me, which I didn't necessarily want, but she picked one for me, and it was actually a super cool one. But she picked it for me, and she asked with this and another picture that she saw. She said, "What is that cross, Mama?" Well, actually, I think she called it a kayak without sides, or something like that. It was a kayak without sides. And I was not about to tell a 4-year-old what humans do to humans or humans do to the divine as far as what hangs on a lot of those. I was not ready for that conversation. And I told her the truth of what it is. That it is about crossing out error thinking. It is about crossing out anything that is not kindness. It is about crossing out anything that is not love. It is about crossing out anything that is not godly. It is about crossing out, letting go, stopping things. That's what the master teacher demonstrated with the cross. Demonstrated the ultimate of love, the ultimate of forgiveness, the ultimate of non-resistance, the ultimate of being spirit-led. So pulling in these practices, can we breathe into the possibility that we have launched some prayers for expansion, each one of us in our own lives, in our community as well, and that we are being prepared for them if we pay attention. So just like some people, when they're getting ready to do change work, they get all mental about it, all goal-oriented, like, here I go, these are the things I need to do. Let me get the book, let me go through the routine, and then I'm going to change, right? But it's much more mystical than that. And what happens for me is I find myself in situations like I am right now, which thank you for the prayers for my father, those of you that are praying with us. I find myself in situations where I am pressed or stretched. So here I am with Lent, live and embody a new thought, and I have an opportunity for 40 days. He was actually in the hospital on Ash Wednesday, and a priest came by and gave him his ashes. But, that sounded funny. he would laugh. But I was with my, siblings on texts and everything, and everyone's processing what's going on, what does everything mean? And I realized my practice is going to be fasting, vigilantly fasting from the thoughts that come up for me around him and the circumstance that's going on. And what a perfect time for my spiritual support to have it be Lent. So I can kick myself a little bit into high gear. Like, you're being supported right now. This isn't light, fluffy stuff. Like, do you want to go down the rabbit holes of negative thinking? And so I worked with, which I would suggest for each one of us, I worked with an affirmation. And my general lineup for an affirmation is, for Lent, is I am fasting from XYZ, you fill in the blank. I am fasting from this or that, and knowing that, and then you put in a positive statement. So I am fasting from negative thinking, knowing that I live in an abundant universe. I am fasting from holding on, knowing that my good comes to me with grace and ease. Whatever it is, whatever you're fasting from, put that in, and then remember that. Memorize that statement. So every time there is a temptation, you are not left alone. I am fasting from analyzing this, knowing that Spirit is in charge. I am fasting from whatever it is. Something is going on for you right now, and it's big. And if it's really big, you're not alone. You're just paying attention. Can you partner with that? Because you're being prepared for something. There were a lot of other things I noticed during this time that I was being prepared before it. I mean, it wasn't until standing in the closet with my friend, Brenda, and she said, this is the visit where we're going to go through your clothes. And I was like, I've been thinking about that for a long time. Let's do it. And she started going through thing by thing. And when she does something, she does it. It's not just light. It's not just kind of, it's Marie Kondo. Every single thing comes out of the closet, and you only get to keep a certain number of every color. A very small number of every color. And you have to try them on and prove they fit, except for the 4 jeans that I snagged and stuck in the corner just in case they fit again someday, which she was very unhappy about. But it's not until I find myself in one of those moments that I'm standing there with her, and she's doing the physical process, and I'm analyzing it all spiritually of how I feel about my attachments and what am I doing? And then I was like, oh, the abundance course. That's right. The abundance course that's happening. And then I go back and I go, oh, the dog, the abundance course. I always kind of skip that part of serving. I opt myself out. My job is serving, so I'm going to opt out of that one. My yoga, a commitment to eating well. All of that happened in the time that I was being prepared to support our group, our time together. What happens when we become aware of it, when we partner with it? What happens when we stretch ourselves, when we allow ourselves to be a little bit squeezed and pinched? And what happens when we engage in something and commit to something enough, when we give it a full-bodied yes, that we actually know we need God to get through it? We're working it. We're really working it. If I just play to the degree that it's comfortable, and I can do it seemingly on my own, then I'm just dancing with myself. That's not the practice. Can I bring it to the edge, work my edge to the degree that I know I need the fullness of my source supporting me for this growth, for this expansion. Amen. Namaste. Let's take this into a moment of meditation and just breathe into the core of our being. There's something in Unity we call the hidden curriculum. And the hidden curriculum is that part of life that we may, on the surface, think is irrelevant or not being included in what we're consciously participating in or activating in. But what the hidden curriculum is the real work. It's not what we as separate sense beings plan for, but it's that aspect of life and Godness that knows the depths of our soul and what we're ready for, that knows the truth of our being and what we're called to, that knows the power of transformation and the power of our becoming, and that is at work, like the shifting of the earth's core or the filament flying off the sun. The same very force that keeps the cosmos in order is ordering your life. Can we say yes? Can we say, bring it on? Can we take all of it and lean into love rather than fighting with the moment or calling something wrong? Because that's not my plan. That's not abundance. That's not my expansion. This isn't how I ordered my growth. I don't have the time. I don't have the money. I don't have the talent. I don't have the awareness, or do I? I don't need to know how. All I need to do is say yes and recognize that I am one with this universal flow of life we call God. That I live, move, and have my being within this Godness, and that I am infinitely supported. Inhaling and exhaling, let's breathe into letting go. I can let go of control. I can let go of my ideas for greater ideas, knowing that in truth, the greater ideas are my divine birthright. And the lesser ideas just keep me in limitation or suffering or lack. So here I am for 40 days of Lent, fasting from what no longer serves. Vigilant about my mind and what's in it. My body temple and how I treat it. My soul and how I honor it. We are supported. We are lifted. We are held. And we breathe this truth into the silence. Taking a deep inhale. And a complete exhale. By the power of this practice, may all beings have freedom from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all beings know God as love and themselves as emanations of this love. May all beings know we are born blessed and here to be a blessing. Namaste.